Good morning and welcome, fellow Hoops heads. This is another episode of the Last Shot NBA show. I am your host, as always, Nick Metallinos. And as always, we are brought to you by our good friends at topsport.com.au. Now, we have a very special guest with us today to talk hoops. Now, the NBA news cycle is 24/7. There's always something happening. We've got a lot to talk about. He's an NBA staff writer for Sports Illustrated, a fantastic writer, a great guy. As a matter of fact, his only downside is he's a Boston sports fan. Mr. Michael Pina, how are you, sir?
I'm wonderful, Nick. So great to see your beautiful face today.
Thank you very much. You're making me blush already. Mate, we've got a lot to talk about today. First of all, I just want to ask you, we're a couple of weeks into the NBA season. What are your thoughts on the season so far?
It's great to have normal basketball back. Fans in the stands it's been a joy, a delight. I think that one of the biggest talking points so far just on the court has been offense and how it's just not as explosive and as teams are not as efficient as they've been on the same trajectory over the past few seasons. So offensive rating is down to its lowest point in about 5 or 6 seasons, I believe. And that's an interesting trend. We'll kind of keep our eye on that. And there's changes to the free throws and how certain stars are kind of adjusting to the referee's whistle, like James Harden and Trae Young, et cetera, et cetera. Dame Lillard has been struggling with that as well. So, those are just like little nitty gritty things that I've got my eye on. But generally speaking, it's just wonderful to have basketball back. And the other big takeaway I'll say is that I have no idea who the favorite is right now or who the best team in the league is. It's just, it changes from day to day. So that's been fun as well.
Well, I'm glad that you mentioned Trae Young because he's actually who I want to talk about first. If I remember correctly, you picked him to win MVP, didn't you?
I did, yes. But me, I like to be bold. So that was a bold one. We'll see if it pays off. I don't know how good I'm feeling about it at the moment, but yeah, I did pick him for most valuable player this season. You
don't sound as confident as you were when you first tweeted that out, though. What made you pick Trae Young for MVP?
Well, if you just look historically at who wins MVP, it's someone who scores a lot of points on a good team. And so check right there for Trae. And then looking around at some of the other important candidates, LeBron, Anthony Davis, Kevin Durant, James Harden, et cetera. So many of them are also on teams with fellow All-NBA or top 15 type talents. So I felt like, seeing as the media votes on this, and it's not some kind of algorithm or anything where we can just objectively decide who the best player is or who the most valuable player is, that some of those stars would have their votes cannibalized by teammates. So that factored into it as well. But honestly, I thought I was very high on the Hawks coming into the season. I still am, even though they've struggled a little bit out of the gate. And Trae he's the central reason for everything. Their offense revolves around him. He runs a ton of pick and roll. And I just assumed that he would make a jump offensively, get a little bit more efficient. I didn't anticipate the rule change impacting his ability to get to the free throw line as much as it has, but I think he'll adjust over the following, the weeks and the months ahead. And I also assumed that his scoring average would boost up a little bit, though he is getting a lot of assists. So it'll be interesting to see how things kind of shake out going forward. There's a lot of competition in that category. Giannis, obviously, Nikola Jokic, obviously, who won it last year. So it's going to be a fun race. I'm not as confident, I'm not going to lie, as I was 3 weeks ago, but you never know. He could still win it.
Well, you actually wrote a fantastic cover story for Sports Illustrated on Trae Young a couple of weeks ago. You mentioned how just now that he needs to adjust to certain styles of play. And there was a quote that I liked in the story from Coach Nate McMillan. And he said, he's got one of those fast cars. You can't drive that car the same way on a sunny day as you can when it's raining and snowing out there. And he was playing fast, speaking about Trae Young. He was taking the same shots he was taking in the first quarter, in the fourth quarter. He wasn't adapting to conditions. Do you think that's a fair assessment?
Yeah, I thought that was a fair assessment of his play last year. And frankly, the first 2 years of his career, despite starting the All-Star game as a sophomore, which was very impressive. The Hawks, I mean, if you watch Trae Young play basketball, I think one of the things that the first thing that pops in your head is just those heat check 30-footers that he'll take, with 18 on the shot clock, with his team, the opposing team on like an 8-0 run or something. And it's just like, yeah, that's not what you want right there. And those would rarely go in as well. So what Nate is basically saying is, for this team to go far, and they did in the playoffs, and I thought Trae made really good adjustments, you need to be more of a point guard. You need to understand when it's time to get to the free throw line, when it's time to hit the mid-range jumper, when it's time to run a pick and roll, get downhill, hit John Collins or Clint Capella on the lob, kick it out to Bogey for a corner three. And I think that he's really adjusted well to that, and he's matured in that regard. But you got to remember, he's only 23 years old, and just the sky is the limit for him offensively. He can do it all. And I think that the way he's kind of evolved since Nate McMillan became the head coach has been really promising for him and just generally his career going forward.
When you look at the Hawks as a team, though, I mean, I look at that squad a couple of seasons, or I always say this, it feels like a couple of seasons ago, but the bubble was only probably about 12 months ago. They make the Eastern Conference Finals. They lose to the Bucks or was that last season? I'm already forgetting. They're all blurring into one. That was last season. They're all blurring into one. So that was last season. They lose to the Bucks in the Eastern Conference Finals. They're currently 4-3. Beat Washington yesterday, 118. 111. They've got a tough stretch coming up. They've got the Wizards, Nets, Jazz, Suns, and the Warriors. Can they get some momentum going now?
I mean, those are some tough opponents for sure. But, I picked the Hawks to finish third in the Eastern Conference coming into this season. And I still feel pretty good about that. Like, I love the depth of this team. I love all the pieces on the court really complement one another really well. And last year when they really hit their stride, some guys were out with injury and that benefited them. It allowed certain guys to catch a rhythm, catch some confidence. But honestly, like you look at Cam Reddish right now, who's making a little bit of a mini leap here off the bench. DeAndre Hunter is kind of easing his way back from a knee injury that kept him out of the playoffs beyond their first round win against the New York Knicks. I'm really high on DeAndre Hunter. You have Bogdan Bogdanovic, who's one of the best 3-point shooters in the entire league. But then you just have in the front court with John Collins, who can play the 4 or the 5, who's improving defensively every single season he's in the league. You have Clint Capella, who's a Defensive Player of the Year candidate, who doesn't really need touches. So I like all the pieces. I like how they fit. Kevin Huerter, another guy who was a star in Game 7 of their Eastern Conference semifinals win against the Philadelphia 76ers last year. He's also kind of easing his way in, trying to sacrifice a little bit, which is a big theme of my story for Sports Illustrated. But I think once everybody kind of figures out their role and is able to excel in it, this team is just going to be really tough to beat because they have so much talent from like 1 through 9, 1 through 10 on the roster.
Yeah. When I look at this Atlanta Hawks team, I'm getting, and this could just be me, but I'm getting real like 2014-15 Atlanta Hawks vibes where the season that they won 60 games, they again made the conference finals that year. Then the next year they come back and they take another step back. And I don't know, I'm looking at this roster. I'm just not quite as high on it as you seem to be. I just feel like they're going to take another step back this year rather than go forward.
So what I'll say to that is getting back to the Eastern Conference Finals is like hard. Like there's a lot of really good teams in the East this season. Teams that took a step back last year, like the Miami Heat, for example, are going to be very competitive going forward for the entire season. When I comparing them to the 2015 Hawks, that team didn't have like a superstar, an offensive superstar. It was like a collective, and I know I just made this point for why I'm really high on Atlanta and their depth and complementary pieces, and that's kind of why the 2015 Hawks were so good. But they didn't have a guy who you could just throw the ball to him with 2 minutes left in a tie game, and he's just going to score, or he's going to create a really good shot no matter what the defense is doing. And that's Trae. So I think Trae is the difference maker here. He's going to make the All-Star team this year. He's going to be an All-Star for the foreseeable future. And his ceiling offensively is like a top 5 talent. I don't know if he's a top 5 talent right now, but I think that he's going to evolve into one sooner than later. And in the playoffs last year, he really showed everything that he could do. He had every shot going for him. He had the floater. He had the pull-up three. He was getting to the line. He was getting everybody involved. So if he can get even better on that end with the ball in his hands and trust his teammates a little bit more, I just think that this offense is just so explosive, and it's going to be really difficult to stop.
Well, you've picked them to finish third. Like I said, I'm not as high on them as you. I probably think they're going to finish around 4th or 5th. As long as they don't play the Knicks again, I'll be happy, because Trae Young absolutely torched the Knicks last year. There's another team I want to talk to you about, and we were actually texting each other yesterday, and I mentioned the Celtics, which is your team, and you wrote back, Celtics. So I want to get into the Celtics a little bit. They lost to the Bulls yesterday, capitulated, you might say, 128-114, 2-5 on the season. What is going on with the Boston Celtics?
How long do you have?
We've got time. We've got time. Let's get into it.
I'll start with Jason Tatum, who has been, in my opinion, wildly disappointing to start the season, and you can look at a lot of different reasons for that. Just basic shots are not falling for him. His shot selection has been terrible. He's trying to adjust to a new coach, a new system. He no longer has a Kemba Walker type point guard, a Kyrie Irving type point guard to really relieve some of the pressure and relieve some of the playmaking responsibilities. But I assumed, maybe mistakenly, that he would have taken a step forward. He would take a step forward as a playmaker, as a shot creator, as a setup man for teammates. That's his next step of his evolution. Everyone knows he can score, but he just is so obsessed with getting in the bag in the mid range, and the sidestep threes and the step back long twos, these contested, really difficult shots. He just can't shake them. I mean, he's been wildly inefficient all season long. I think that has been kind of stalling them, and they can't go forward until he takes another step as a superstar level talent, which he is. The other thing is just the defense is 27th right now in the league.
Yeah.
Coming into the season, I thought that they would have a top 5 defense. They have Rob Williams, who's got Defensive Player of the Year intangibles and athleticism. Al Horford, who I don't really need to talk about how good he is on defense, and he's still moving incredibly well. He might be their best player right now, which is really
that's saying a lot, isn't it?
We're opening up a whole can of words with that statement. But Jason Tatum, who I just mentioned, excellent defender. Jaylen Brown, prototypical wing defender. Every team in the league wants someone like that. And then Marcus Smart, who's made multiple all-defensive teams at point guard. So, like, the fact that they've been struggling, you add Josh Richardson into the mix, who has a really good reputation as a defender. Dennis Schroeder is okay defensively. He's not terrible. Grant Williams, just guys in the rotation. There's just not a lot of weak links. And yet you watch their loss to the Bulls, which is one of the 5 worst Celtics losses I think I've seen in my entire life. And nobody's getting back in transition the entire basketball game. No one is... DeMar DeRozan's just coming off screens, hitting wide open pull-up twos. Like, we don't have the scouting report on DeMar DeRozan, despite 10 years of evidence that this is the shot that he wants to take. Yeah. So I don't know how it gets cleaned up. I mean, they have a new head coach, obviously. They're still adjusting to new schemes on both ends of the floor. It's going to take some time, I suppose. But right now, they're very, very disappointing. There's really no other way around it. And after that loss against the Bulls, Marcus Smart called out Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum and their inability to pass, and that's just probably not going to make matters better anytime soon.
Yeah, well, I was actually just going to read out that quote as well. Basically, so Marcus Smart said, "I would just like to play basketball. Every team knows we're trying to go to Jason and Jaylen. Every team is programmed and studied to stop Jason and Jaylen. I think everybody's scouting report is to make those guys pass the ball. They don't want to pass the ball." It's not a happy camp in Boston at the moment. They've got a rookie head coach as well in Ime Udoka. Is he the guy? Can he pull them out of this little slump, if you can call that a slump?
Yeah, I mean, I would think so. Like he's just well reputed coming from the systems that he's been in. He was in Brooklyn last year. He was in Philadelphia before. He was the right-hand man for Greg Popovich in San Antonio for all those years. He's respected by all the players. By all accounts, he's tough with them, and they listen. But transition defense is effort in the NBA, and he's already called out their effort before, and we're 7-8 games into the season. So I don't know. This is his first rodeo as a head coach in the league. It's been a bumpy start. You have the elephant in the room is the fact that Brad Stevens is in the front office now as the general manager making decisions. And so are you going to get a Pat Riley, Stan Van Gundy situation at some point? I don't know. That's just me speculating, of course, but Brad Stevens had a lot of success as the head coach of the Celtics. So it's not the start that anyone in Boston wants. If you're trying to look at it with, a glass half full optimism, they've lost a lot of overtime games. Their record could be flipped a little bit. They could be near the top of the standings easily. And again, everyone is adapting to a new scheme, a new system. This could take time. Marcus Smart has never played point guard before. But again, so far, they've been just one of the most disappointing teams in the league.
Okay, take off your Boston fan hat just for a second and give us an unbiased, thought. Do they make the playoffs?
Right now, look, there's a lot of teams in the East that are really good. I mentioned Miami earlier. The Knicks are better than I thought they would be. The Bucks haven't been healthy. They'll get healthy. They'll certainly be a playoff team. And then there's just a lot of teams at the top that we don't even need to mention. So it's going to be very competitive. We'll see how a team like the Charlotte Hornets fares as the season kind of drags on, if they're able to keep up their momentum. We'll see what happens with a team like Philadelphia with Ben Simmons. I mean, they've been winning without Ben Simmons. They won the other night without Joel Embiid or Tobias Harris against the Portland Trailblazers. So they're looking good. The Washington Wizards, for once in our lifetimes, look terrific.
Surprisingly.
We'll see if they can sustain it. The Hawks, we already mentioned the Hawks. So there's a lot of good teams in the Eastern Conference right now. I would say that it would be foolish for me, frankly, to just say that the Celtics are going to make the playoffs based on everything we've seen so far. I can't do it.
I like it. Listen, Mike, we know you're a very busy man. We're going to let you go. Before we let you go, we're just going to take a quick look at some of the games we've got coming up. We have the Miami Heat and the Dallas Mavericks. Miami Heat, $1.65 favorites. The line at 2.5. The total is at 209.5. Mike, who do you like in this game?
I like Miami. I think Miami, I know Miami has the best defense in the league so far statistically. They have the highest net rating in the league. They're pummeling. Every one of their wins has been by double digits. They just beat the Memphis Grizzlies in Memphis without Bam Adebayo on the second night of a back-to-back in a very impressive win. Duncan Robinson has not been shooting the three well, one of the best three-point shooters of all time. Kyle Lowry has not been shooting the three ball well. He's an excellent outside shooter. And they're playing with great pace. Jimmy Butler is the best two-way player in the NBA right now, early season, but he is right now. So I like Miami.
Yeah, I'm definitely going with Miami as well. Another game we've got on today is the Houston Rockets and the Los Angeles Lakers playing each other for the second time in 3 days. Lakers, overwhelming favorites at $1.20. Houston, $5. The line is at 10. Excuse me. The total is at 219. I'm going with the Lakers in this one. I think Carmelo might have another big night. What do you reckon?
I was waiting for the Carmelo statement right there.
That's sixth man of the year, Carmelo Anthony. Thank you very much.
I was about to say he's got that 6-man glow right now. Shout out to Melo. He looks terrific. I gotta go with the Lakers as well, I suppose. They're playing the Rockets. That's my reason. The Rockets are terrible.
Yep.
So LeBron is 36 and he looks like he's 25 right now physically. When he's engaged, he's LeBron. I don't even know what else there is to say about it. AD looks terrific. They're still figuring a lot of stuff out with Westbrook, integrating him into their offense, but they've finally moved AD to the 5 in the starting lineup, which is humongous. So I got to go Lakers here. All
right, and just a couple of games for tomorrow morning. Do the Celtics bounce back at the Magic?
Please. I'm begging.
Yeah, I think actually they win that one there. And the Bulls and 76ers tomorrow. I'm going to go with the Bulls because I'm all in on that team right now.
I like Chicago as well. I think they play with a great pace. I'm actually going to go against the grain here, and I'm going to go with Philly because I assume that Joel Embiid is going to play. He's going to be well rested, and they don't have an answer for, I mean, not a lot of teams do, but they really don't have an answer for Embiid. So he should be able to feast offensively and defensively in that matchup. So I'm going with Philly.
Nice. All right, we'll see how we fare. Mike, thank you very much for your time. We really, really appreciate it. Just tell the people where they can find you on Twitter.
Sure. Follow me at Michael V. Pina, Pina, and shout out to Sports Illustrated. Go to si.com. A lot of fantastic work there every day.
Yes, sir. We really appreciate your time, Mike. Thank you very much once again. And of course, we're going to be back on Friday morning. We've got 3 live shows a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 9 a.m. Please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you guys on Friday.